Hello and welcome to the Niler 9 podcast. On this week's episode, I am going to be chatting to one of the organisers of the Open Ear Festival, the electronic and experimental festival that happens on Sherkin Island off the coast of Baltimore, West Cork. And it's a festival that's been running since 2016. So I think it's the ninth year this year. So the head of programming, Dion Doherty, is going to be on talking to me about the challenges of putting on the avant-electronic and experimental festival on an island on the June bank holiday weekend. So that is May 29th to June 1st. The festival generally operates with a preoccupation of music on the fringes, and the remote island setting kind of reflects that as well. There's all sorts of music on the open ear lineup every year. It draws from techno, electronic, experimental, avant-garde, folk, trad, jazz, EBM, bass music and art rock. This year the lineup features the likes of Irish techno legend Sunil Sharp. There is Trofadine, the Galway band, Natalia Bayliss and Willie Stewart from Leitrim, Marion Hawkes, the Belfast Sound Advice record shop owner and DJ, Lane Malone from Cork, I Dreamed a Dream, the Shannos Rockers, also from Cork, Dam Area, the Italian Catalan EBM duo, who actually mentioned on the Patreon episode not too long ago. There's from Limerick, Citrus Fresh and 40 Hertz, DJ Egg as well. Americord, Autumns are playing, Ballybach. Scottish piper Breege Campbell is playing as well. I'm really into her new music, as well as one of our recent favourites, Roche, the Fermanagh composer and electronic artist. There's so much happening here. The really interesting thing about Open Ear is that, it's a festival that is about community and bringing that community to a different place. It's not an overly commercial festival. It kind of tries to operate in of itself, one stage at any time, even though there's a few stages on Sherkin Island over that weekend. It typically has had really nice weather as well, and there's a really lovely documentary if you want to watch that as well on YouTube to give you a flavour of it. But we're going to talk to Dion Doherty about programming a festival like this, the joys and challenges of doing it, and some of the highlights that the festival has had over the last few years. And I think an open ear has always been something I've never been managed to get to it because it's always on the bank holiday weekend. Someday I will. For now, there's loads of interesting plans afoot for the future of open ear, and they're very much embracing their kind of European counterparts. And the idea is that open ear will become a much more networked thing, perhaps, than just a festival that happens every year off the coast of West Cork. So let's get into the chat with Dion Doherty from Open Ear. Dion, how are you? I guess let's just talk about the history of Open Ear and how you got involved and where it started, because I guess Open Ear is one of the few independent festivals left who has a very specific thing that it does and is not looking to grow necessarily. It's not looking to be more commercial. It's not looking to bring in brand sponsorship, all that kind of stuff. So let's go back to the start of it and how it started. And obviously it started with Shirkin, right?
Yeah, so it started very organically. My buddy Chris was camping down there and they got rained on and they saw there was a guest house up the road. So they went and stayed there. The couple who own the guest house are called Kathy and Mike O'Connor. They're like absolute legends. They're amazing. Like they've been our hosts all these years. They put us up. They feed all the artists. It's their land, which makes the festival possible. I mean, we couldn't really picture doing it anywhere else.
Yeah.
And so we got chatting. Chris got chatting to them. They're like very creative people, very fostering of creativity, and they are totally up for making the guest house they have like a hub for culture. And so Chris just said, "Oh, look, we'd like to do an event there, like a party for our mates." I had been DJing and running gigs for like, I think 15 years at that stage. So I had like a connection to a lot of the people in the electronic music scene in Ireland. And so Chris got me on board. And as we were planning, we realized that this is going to take so much work that we should, maybe wait till the summer, do it in a field with the tent and have people camp. And it went from there, and there was, I think, 250 people at the first one.
Yeah.
All the artists came and played for free. It was a great show of trust by them. And yeah, it's kind of just grown organically since then.
Yeah. So tell me about Sherkin. What is it about Sherkin itself that, really made you want to do something? And obviously the other thing about doing something on Ireland, you do need the buy-in, which sounds like you do. How many people live there? Like how much of it is community management or like community outreach?
A lot, yeah, an awful lot is making sure that the Islanders like that the Islanders are on side with us. And Chris, who I run the festival with, does absolutely amazing work there. Like, he is so good, and he spends so much of his time building community links with the island. And to be fair, like, we've never really had an issue with our punters, causing havoc. We try and discommode the Islanders as little as possible. I mean, the main thing is kind of traffic going up and down. But in terms of like that kind of community building, so yeah, there's 80 full-time residents of the island. And in the last 2 years, they've actually been joined by the same number again of people fleeing the war in Ukraine who live in what was the Islanders Rest Hotel. So in one fell swoop, the population of the island has doubled. And from our perspective, it's been great because it's kind of, it's led to like an influx of vitality to the island. Like, we've had Ukrainians working on the festival. The folks from the hotel came and set up a stall to sell food there last year. There's been babies born on the island. There was actually one Ukrainian baby and one Irish baby born last year. So yeah, and I think as well, like, a lot of festivals where that are on the mainland, maybe bigger festivals, there is always going to be some adversarial element with the local population most of the time, because not everyone is going to be happy. Whereas on Sherkin, we really try and get buy-in as much as possible. Yeah. Although that maybe doesn't extend to the neighbouring islands that we blast out of it with tunes every year.
What are the neighbouring islands there?
There's Cape Clear, Hare Island, Whiddy Island.
Yeah,
there's like, so yeah, Sherkin is part of the West Cork Islands. So there's 7 of them, and there's an amazing funding project down there run by a chap called Peter Prendergast, which aims to develop culture on each of the 7 islands. So we're funded as part of that, and we went to a kind of a feedback session one time when we were on Sherkin with representatives of all the other islands, and it was amazing, like, to see the different projects that this thing is funded, like, so it really is they call them the islands of the arts, and we're, I suppose, a part of that as well.
Yeah, I've been to a couple of different island festivals before. Obviously, Drop Everything Off Galway on Ireland Islands was one, and then a very different one, which kind of sounds to me like more like what you're doing, which was called Inish Turk. It was very much like this gentle, friend festival that became this bigger thing. And I think what I gather from that is that when you talked, you just have to keep everyone happy, and that's the difficulty. And then, but I think the thing about opening it seems very, there's a lot, it requires a lot more buy-in, maybe because you're doing stuff, you're presenting music that's more of an experimental. You're not like, well, we better put on whoever because they want to, from the island, who wants to play. I know you do a bit of that as well, but like you have to manage that. So what's the ethos of the festival now? Because this is how many years have you done it? 9th year.
Yeah, so
Okay.
next year will be our 10 year. It's
Wow.
we're
Okay.
we're all, I'm already scheming for that milestone. Yeah, I think I think one of the things that people who come to the festival for the first time, and surprisingly, I suppose, or maybe not so surprisingly, post COVID, we've had a huge new influx of first timers and younger festival goers, which is great to see
Mm-hmm.
because it gives the festival some sustainability. But one of the things they're always surprised by is how much crack it is, because we call ourselves an experimental music festival, but we're all, grizzled ravers at the end of the day. Like, we come from a background of going out dancing, so that is a huge part of the festival. And it is always about, what, not what can we get away with, but like how much what we can program in a way that makes sense, because obviously the overriding ethos of our programming is that we have one audience and one stage.
Yeah, which is obviously that's like a really intentional thing as well. It gives everyone space.
Yeah, I mean, it did grow organically because it's A, like the size of the site, B, the amount of money we had when we started, and then C, I suppose the intentional part of it is that I hate that noise pollution you get when you're walking between two sites at a festival, two different stages at a festival. But so when we think of programming, we're thinking, what can we have that can go from, say, Elaine Malone at 5 p.m. to Sunil Sharp at 11 p.m. on the same stage that will make sense and hopefully appeal to as many people at the festival as possible.
Yeah, and I think you're kind of leaning into the idea of, rather than this smorgasbord of like loads of different stages, loads of different things, you're like there's I suppose like critical listening, or like, intentional listening to stuff as well, and intentional experience.
Definitely, yes. So we like it is. It's also quite unusual as well to have a festival that has so much experimental music take place on an island, and doubly so in Ireland, because I mean a lot of the festivals that we were influenced by are places like, Unsound, CTM, Rewire, where it's city-based festivals and you're in a concert hall listening to Oren and Barkey or somebody, whereas we have I remember the one performance, I think, when we really realized we could push the boat out a bit, was Jennifer Walsh in 2018, I want to say. And I was actually playing live that evening, and I hadn't got a chance to rehearse because, of course, how would I when I'm running the festival? And so I was quite stressed, and I was standing at the back of the tent, and Jennifer was doing this like amazing, but also quite out there, like, performance of like glossolalia and nonsense words. And it was really intense. And I think it went on for like nearly an hour, and it had been raining that day. So the tent was rammed with people who were there to listen, but also as well, just a few of them might have just been taking shelter from the rain.
Yeah.
And I was getting increasingly stressed, thinking, oh my God, none of these people are ever going to come back. What do they think of this? And at the end, she got a huge cheer, one more tune chance, and all the rest of it. And I was like, okay, so you can actually like push the boat out a bit here.
Okay. And how has the kind of programming developed over the time? Because the festival's presumably grown a little bit. I mean, there's only so much it can grow, presumably.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so I'll chat about the programming in a second, but in terms of growth, we are actually very ambitious for the festival, and so it's not about growing in numbers or, we don't think of acts in terms of their size. It's just in terms of what we can afford to program. So we definitely are ambitious in that, we want to continue to like improve how we present work, what work we can present, and then we have like a lot of different projects on the go. We're hoping to develop a residence space on the island where people can come and come and make new work. We're going to start doing some international showcases in various venues around Europe, so we're starting on that this year. I guess like so the programming, like, so I'm the head of programming at the festival, so I kind of obsessively seek out new acts. And up until 20 last year, it was exclusively Irish and Irish based acts. So that defined what we programmed. And so I would constantly be seeking out new acts, acts that I hadn't seen on other bills, acts that people maybe didn't know that they were Irish, or they lived abroad and they hadn't played in Ireland in many years. So yeah, so that's kind of a year round whirring factory at the back of my brain that's kind of constantly going. And then the rest of the team have a lot of input as well. So we kind of collate our list of who we'd like to book at the end of the year. We have like an ongoing like giant list of people, some of whom have been on that list since the festival started, and also as well our audience, because now they kind of know what we're about. They'll come up and they'll say, "Oh, did you know such and such?" So like Sam De La Rosa, for instance, last year. I had no idea he was based in Wicklow, and I've been a fan of his music for years. And my friend Liz Rooney, who DJs as Eliza, came up and said, you should book Sam De La Rosa. And I was like, holy crap, I haven't seen his name on an Irish gig poster, I think, since Simon Conway booked him for Forza Italo like a billion years ago. So it's just kind of a community thing, a thing with the team, and then my own personal like strivings, I guess.
Yeah, how many people are involved now in the running of the festival?
I think there's I would say there's like a core team of 5 of us. So there's myself and Chris. Chris is the festival director. I'm the head of programming. Kenny Hanlon, who handles bits of our marketing and also our development. So we're hoping to increase our funding in the coming years. He's a big part of that. Mick Donoghue, who makes music as T-Walk, is our stage manager. And then Sarah Murphy is our incredibly talented build coordinator. She makes all the amazing stage designs, and every piece of furniture you see on the island is her creation, And then that obviously expands as the festival goes on. We have people who come in like in the lead up to it. We have an amazing team on the weekend, like really, really, really amazing. Yeah, we've got a lot of new, younger folk who've recently become involved. So that's really nice as well, to kind of rejuvenate the team as well. Yeah.
The recent documentary you put out gives you a flavour of some of the putting on the festival and what it's like. And one of the things mentioned, I think, as Sarah mentions is about the build and sustainability, and how you don't want to upset the guys who run the boat too much.
Yes, yeah. I think like a separate documentary could be made just about the ferry and getting stuff on and off it. Georgia, who's one of the new team members I mentioned, is our production manager this year, and it was her first year last year, and we really threw her in at the deep end because it was our first time doing camper vans. Yeah. And she nailed it. Like she was so brilliant. Like, but because obviously, the ferry has to stick to its usual schedule for the islanders, and that means that artists have to make those ferries, some of whom like are coming on the day of their set, which I always discourage, but it is the way of the world now. So that can be very stressful. We have a few artists coming in on Sunday who I think we're going to have to organise alternative aquatic transport for.
Yeah.
I mean, even I remember on a very small example of this, being in Carrick on Shannon and doing a boat party, and Don Deneen was late, and we had to like sort out a little a dinghy for him to come and to pick him up to bring him out where everyone else was. So I understand that, and also the other festivals. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure when you're on the island and you're like, that people are coming and what time they're coming, and you're like, God, that so many people are going to miss it. It's going to be late. You're like, oh, there's probably a bit of added stress with all that stuff as well.
Yeah, Donal actually had a gig on in Connolly's of Lepp on the Saturday of the festival last year, and I think he was driving towards it, I heard, and he realised he wasn't going to make the festival, so he just kept on going to Kerry. So yeah, but yeah, like the logistical side of it is, it's definitely something that I think people are understanding of. We've never had an artist miss their set
Okay, that's good.
due to ferry issues, and I mean people get better and better as well as they come more. They know, okay, I need to be in Baltimore an hour before the ferry departs because I have to get parking. I have to drop my stuff. It's not a case of just rocking up, pulling in, and jumping on the ferry.
And I mean, you've been lucky enough with the weather over the years. It seems
Yeah,
like.
last year was the most blessed. Well, no, like year one was insane. It was the hottest I think I've ever experienced in Ireland. And then last year as well, because if you remember last year, the weather was absolutely brutal, the whole
Yeah.
year. It affected our ticket sales. I think it affected the ticket sales of a lot of festivals in the lead up to it. It was 6 months of rain and darkness. And then we got the only 3 consecutive days of sunshine all summer, and it was like stunning. So I think a lot of people who didn't have faith and missed out had the serious FOMO, and that's why thankfully our ticket sales are fantastic this year. So
Yeah. Okay. That's nice. Nice. So there's obviously like the logistics of it is there's no shop on the island. You got to bring everything with you. You got to be prepared. What are your unique challenges really? Other than I mean, you have to get everyone there. You have to logistics have to be set up.
it's actually more that we're often like heartened by how well things work. So like last year, it was like I had Tukai played this unbelievably legendary set last year. I actually was, because I just have to when I crash, I just have to sleep, and so I was like, right, I'm done. I have to go to bed. So I went to bed for a few hours, and I woke up for the last 5 minutes of Tukai's set, and like the place was absolutely hopping. He was in this little side tent after hours from about 3 to 5 a.m. And since then, it's the only thing I've heard about in terms of people are just like, get Tukai back. That was the best thing I've ever seen in my life. That was the best DJ set. And I'm like, it's the one I was asleep for that I'm hearing about. But after that, I was like, okay, I'm awake now. I better do a little recce of the site. And we have a secret beach down at the end of the site that we used as a gig space for the first time last year, and it was amazing. And we that was actually speaking of logistics, that was a massive job. We had to bring diggers in on a trawler, park them on the beach, build a new path to make the beach accessible, and then put gravel down. It actually looks fantastic, and it's really added so much to the festival. But because we're not really we don't police our audience to any great extent, I went down to that secret beach at like 5:30, 6 in the morning. It was bright, and there was loads of folks down there like having their own little party with like a speaker and a fire going, and there was cans and stuff everywhere. And I sat with them and had a chat, whatever, had a bit of crack. And as I was leaving, I said, right guys, just make sure this is clean when you leave. And I went down a few hours later because we were setting up for the day's music, and it was spotless. It looked like nobody had been there. And so I think people do, they get the sense when they arrive that this isn't, a capitalistic transactional affair, that I'm the punter and you're providing me with the service. People kind of chip in and become like a bit of a team, really.
Yeah, and I think that's something about being on an island as well. I think making that journey does something to your head as well. You'd like mentally, you kind of go, I'm somewhere else. I'm not somewhere. You're also just can't. Oh, I'm gonna head off. Actually, I'm done. You're like you're there. You have to stay. You have to pay attention. You have to engage. Makes
Absolutely.
a big
Yeah, no,
difference.
yeah, no, when you step out on that ferry, and it's going across the short distance to Sherkin from Baltimore, and it's like sea air in your face, like your mindset just flips in those 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I mean, I think like it's also one of the things people say is how easy it all is, because when you get to the site, it's tiny. You can walk the length of it in a minute. So you're never more than 30 seconds from your tent. So even if it's raining, the journey from your tent to the music is really brief.
Yeah.
We have like hot showers. We have vendors who serve delicious food. Like I think we've got some amazing vendors lined up this year. So apart from bringing like some snacks and a slab of cans, it isn't like complete Lord of the Flies castaway stuff.
Who's doing the food this year, Gordon?
So we have some folks from Cork called Mad Yolks, I think they're called. And then there was a lady whose name I can't remember off the top of my head, who she's from Cork, but she ran a restaurant in Copenhagen, and she was back for a few months and heard about the festival and said she'd like to do some food. So she did this amazing shakshuka thing last year and had an absolutely amazing time. So she's actually coming back from Copenhagen to do that. And then we have Bahé, who Richie has and his partner have been involved in the festival for many years. They did food in, I think, 2019. And since that, and they came back last year, they did catering for our Islanders night on the Thursday, and they did food over the weekend. And they're another team that we're completely blessed to have, because they've blown up in the last few years. And their food is delicious Filipino Irish fusion stuff. So yeah, no, it's actually that's actually a real struggle for us though, to get vendors to. So you're saying I have to get my van onto a ferry, I have to come across to an island, and it's for how many people? But every time they come, everyone who comes, has is really pleased with how they do, and with the festival itself, they all have a great time.
Yeah. So I know there's Banger Cliff, right? So how many areas have you got? I know only one performance at one time, but how many different spaces have you got?
We've actually utilised loads and loads of different spaces across the island. So if I was to go maybe as you were taking the walk, so in years gone by, we've had music in the Jolly Roger. So up until about 2019, maybe the last pre-COVID one, we had music in the Jolly on the Sunday, and that just started becoming unmanageable because our audience grew and it was completely rammed. There was people not able to get in, and we had a huge overspill into the Islanders Rest Hotel across the road. People were just sitting out the back there having pints. I took refuge there myself a few times. So we said that was no longer feasible, which is a real pity because it was always a highlight of the weekend, but it is what it is. But last year we had our Islanders night and our Thursday night music in the Jolly. So it was our first return to there, and it was fantastic. We had Mohammed Sifkan play. Musicians from the Islanders played, Juno Chital Flowers at night, and we welcomed punters from the festival could come that night, and Islanders, so it was a lovely kind of mix of people. Then if you're walking down from the pub, on your left is the ruins of the 13th century Franciscan Abbey, and so we had Amanda Feary play there last year, doing a special iteration of a collaboration they had done with Emer Walsh for Emer's piece for Ireland's Venice Biennale. It was kind of a musical reinterpretation of the score for that, and that was the first time we'd used that, and it was somewhere we'd longed to use since we started, and it was spectacular setting, midday on a Sunday. There was a real sense of calm, and like you said, you were talking about deep listening earlier. That was really a moment when I felt people were really locked into the music because the surroundings brought it to that. Yeah. Then as you continue on up the island, there's the community centre. So we've hosted many different performances there over the years. One in particular that I remember was Dylan Kerr. Their performance was amazing. They were on the ground painting and noise making, and then they waded out into the water across from the community centre and finished up, and there it was quite it's like something from a Herzog film or something. Further up the island, there's the Catholic Church on the island, which we've used nearly every year. Last year we had Kate Carr and Dave Donaghy's performance there, And this year is actually one of the first times we won't be using it unless we have Bridget Campbell, the Scottish small piper, playing in the ruins of the Abbey this year. So that's weather dependent, obviously. So I think the church will be our backup, TBC. And then you're getting up towards our main festival site, like where Bangor Cliff is. And we've kind of activated different spaces around there. Like, so we had Frog of Earth do like a performance at dawn on a weird little grassy outcrop down from the main festival site in 22, which was absolutely amazing. It was so fitting for like the amphibian sort of tenor of his music.
Yeah, of course.
And then we have the O'Connor Strand, which is we call the Secret Beach. And last year we had Harga, who are a noise duo, and Ontrinsa and Il Santo Bevatore, who are two London-based musicians as well, who kind of work with noise. And so this year we figured we'd have like more of a party. So we have Marion Hawks and DJ Marcel and Autumn's in Cannes down there. So it's going to be a bit of a bop, which I'm really looking forward to.
Nice. So it happens May Bank Holiday. When do you all go and set up?
People are actually surprised when we tell them this. Nearly nobody's. I think Chris might go down on the Sunday. I go down on like the Tuesday generally. And then, kind of our build team are there from Monday, Tuesday, and then we're all kind of out of there by Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah, so it's really only like a little over a week that we have to be down there, because it's again, that's one of the benefits of doing a smaller festival with only one stage.
Yeah, is there anything that gets easier over the years, or is it just?
Yeah, I definitely think like just our general competence increases. The first 3 years we did it, we didn't ask for enough help maybe. So we had like year one, myself, Chris and Mick, I think nearly did everything. Us, yes, Sarah wasn't. Sarah, we had, no, sorry, that's not true. We had a really nice decorating team in year one, led by Chris's partner Kira. But myself and Chris took on way too much responsibility, and that increased, I think, up until year 3. As the festival grew, we didn't ask for enough help, or we didn't expand the team enough. So we were extremely stressed by the time Friday ran around, and like I think 2018 in particular was arduous. But since then, I think with the increased success of the festival and just like, pricing tickets to unfortunately the price we need to have them, and being able to call on help and expand the team has been a game changer. Like there's been a few, like last year we're good, we're in a good place here on the Friday, which is in marked contrast to some previous years.
How does your lineup these days reflect what's changing in Irish music?
Yeah, it can be. It's something we kind of grapple with a lot, because so firstly, I think we feel that the pressure's off us a bit, because when we started in 2016, we felt that there was very few outlets that were strictly for Irish left field music. But since then, there's Phelan Agrena has started shortly after us, and they do an amazing festival in Limerick every year that we go to. That's very different to Open Ear, but very similar in its ethos. I just saw Music Town today had released their lineup for this year. They got Operating Theatre, which is something we'd have loved to have had.
I was going to ask.
We've had Roger Doyle perform in the past.
Yeah, of course.
So there, even like Haunted Dance Hall was a great platform for Irish experimental music. So I think because we're maybe not as, there's so much more of an ecosystem there. I think COVID really helped that as well. Like when people couldn't tour, when international acts couldn't tour, people said, oh, look, Denise Child is a superstar. Like, she can totally command the main stage. So, the obvious example as well is like the Mary Wallopers Lankham Kneecap,
Yeah.
and this kind of pride in like in Irish music. So because we're not as unique, the pressure's off a bit. So we definitely felt as well like to help differentiate ourselves from that other stuff as well, and just because we're fans of all kinds of music, we decided to start booking a select few international acts last year who would still not disrupt, not, you know, their gravitational pull wouldn't disrupt the overall ethos of the festival. And like, you know, I think our thing is kind of like we still want people to discover new music even if it's not from Ireland. And then I suppose as well, like one of the things that I struggle with personally, I'm not speaking for the team here, is that because we do feel that we're a sort of representative of the Irish music scene, it's like if there's music that I'm not feeling, I have a bit of an existential crisis about it. So the progressive house and trance revival, that's the hot stuff with the youth these days, is like not my bag at all. I remember it from the first time around, and it was everything I was in rebellion against when I was a snotty nosed techno brat. So that's definitely something I'm like, but this is what this is what the kids love. This is their thing. Am I just being like a middle aged gatekeeper here?
I think it is different when you've been through it the first time.
Yeah, for sure.
It does. You do feel like, yeah, I've done this, or
and no shade as well. Like, I mean, like, you know, I mean, is this what people like 10 years older than me thought when the Italo disco revival was underway? Like, were they going, I remember this in the clubs in the 80s. It was crap.
Yeah. No,
so yeah, so I like, you know, like you always, you want to bring the next generation along and you don't want to gatekeep, but at the same time, I think what we sink or swim or ride or die or whatever you want to say by the fact that the music we program is music we're really, really passionate about, you know?
Yeah, and I think you have to do that because otherwise you're just pandering a little bit and then, you know, what's the point? And you have to, I mean, variation is good, but it has to come from a good place, I think, right? It has to be authentic.
Definitely. And I also think as well that like with our programming and our ethos, we try and differentiate ourselves from those other international experimental music festivals that I was talking about, like Unsound, CTM, and their whole thing is, you know, there's like cutting edge, what's on the cutting edge, what's the new thing. And while we are looking out for new music and looking out for people doing interesting new stuff, it isn't our raison d'etre, you know, like if it's good music, we'll program it. And often as well, I think there's like, you know, with a lot of those festivals as well, there's like the brand new person who it plays that whole circuit one year and they're never seen from again. Or else there's the, you know, legends, the Urelli and Radigays, like these artists who have a really rich history, who are like titans in their field. And I think there is a case that certain artists maybe fall out of being flavour of the month there, which is quite unfair because they're still doing amazing work and it's just they're not a novelty anymore. So you know, there's a lot of artists that we'd love to book that kind of fall into that category.
So what's on the lineup this year is a good old mix of things. You've got even a couple of live bands there, Trough Adine, I Dreamed I Dream. You've got Bridge Campbell, as you said, AmeriCord, Natalia Baylis is there. Roche as well, of course, a really amazing composer, and Keening, all that stuff. She's done amazing stuff.
Oh my God, yeah. Like we're actually so blessed to have her, and she was somebody that Rose played in Plugged Records like last year. I think it was one of the first shows she'd played, maybe just around the time the album had come out or even just before. And Michelle Doyle, Rising Damp, said that was the best set that's ever been in Plugged and one of the best sets I've ever seen in my life. So I was like, okay, we have to get that for open ear. And I loved the album, and I missed 3 of her shows, and I only got to see her when she played in the Druid Theatre in Galway a few months ago. And I was like, I'm so glad we have this on Banger Cliff.
Yeah. Did she do the 2 sets? Yeah, which is a surprise, I think, to a lot of people. It certainly, when she did in Dublin, what happened was she said something kind of ambiguous and people didn't know she was coming back. It was like, we're all going for a smoke break, but it sounded like the gig was over and people weren't really sure what was happening. And then she came back and did the second set, which is more like electronic and almost industrial.
Yeah, no, the part two set, like, cause like as well, like it's like there's an amazing community of young folks who like all go to Willie Clancy Week and have like woolly jumpers and curly mullets in Galway who are like great people, and they all were like up having the bop of their lives at it. It was like really heartwarming to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in terms of the lineup, how I've been kind of thinking about it this year and what's been getting me really excited is that we have like little pockets, like little runs of acts at various stages throughout the weekend. So the Marion Hawks, DJ Marcel, Autumn's in Cannes on the beach, that's one that I've already mentioned. Friday night, I think, could be one of the best runs we've had. So it's like there's like Rose will be playing just after dark. Then it's followed by TFT, who is a mate of mine, Stephen McLaughlin from Derry, who's lived in London for many years. He actually played the festival last year, and myself and himself played at like an off unsound event in Krakow last October, and he was performing his new project under the name TFT, which is a mixture of like Orpi-Boo, Alvanoto and Container. So it's like really frantic but also really precise clinical rhythms.
Yeah.
So it's Roche into him, which will be an amazing contrast. Then that'll be followed directly by Skellies, which is the new collaborative project from Naive Ted and Dan Walsh of Fixity, which is all electronic drumming, and there's no loops, there's no backing track. It's just the two lads just playing drums, and they kind of, it's like weird, like kind of old school, like Chicago techno kind of rhythms and sounds, but with like a really loose swung feel. So that's their debut performance of that. And then directly after that, it's Dama Area, who are the Italian Catalan EBM duo.
Yeah, I actually, last week's podcast we played, because we do a monthly one where it was like best of the month, and this was my old song. I heard it on an NTS show, Crossed Wires. Yeah, I do like a bit of EBM.
Oh yeah,
myself.
they're unbelievable. So like their KEXP performance kind of gives you a flavour of what they're like live.
God, I didn't realise they were even on the lineup there until you said it.
Yeah. So that's actually an unbelievably sweet story as well. So Liz Rooney, who really should be getting a producer credit on the programme, was playing CTM as part of the Gash Collective showcase, and they were on the bill. And I was walking from the bar in Berghain down to the floor that Gash Collective were playing on, and I spotted this EBM duo, and I was like, oh my God, who is this? I was like, if my best friends literally were playing Berghain right now, I would be up the front at this. And then I was chatting to Liz about it afterwards. She had been playing, and she was like, oh my God, they're so nice. We were hanging out for ages, like in the bowels of Berghain, and I was telling them about Open Ear, and they said, it sounds amazing, and they really wanted to go. And they actually contacted her after the festival, and they were like, hey, what's your friend's festival? We still really want to play. And I was like, oh my God, the lineup had just been put to bed and we didn't have any budget left. So I was raging, because it would have been perfect last year as well, because I think they've blown up a lot. So, you know, that kind of, I love to be introducing people to stuff earlier, but the fact that they do have more of a name now is handy. And then, to bring things full circle, I was volunteering at Supersonic Festival in Birmingham last year, and my role on the Friday was as artist liaison, and I was artist liaison for Dam Area, and I said, hey, I'm the guy from the festival, and they were like, oh my God, we want to come and play. So there was a nice little personal connection before we brought them over, you know.
Nice. Oh, great. Well, you're going to have a great time, I'm sure, and everyone who goes is going to have a great time. And it's interesting what you're saying there about bringing a new, younger audience in. Every festival has to do that, regardless. I'm saying to you, I have a little toddler, makes it harder to do things. obviously festivals, and as people get older, then sometimes they drop off going to festivals. So you do need an audience to renew almost every 5-10 years as well. So it's something that it sounds like you're doing, you say, because there's an interest. I think when you identify a set niche, I think the problem with a lot of festivals these days is that they try to, it's a catch-all, and because of the nature of their commercial larger nature, that they have to try and, we do a bit of everything for everyone. So it's always appreciated when, first of all, Island Festival, always good, and then something with a kind of a focus and an ethos is always good. So yeah, you're gonna have a good one. What about you? Make music under a few different aliases, right?
Yeah, so Balakwa is the main alias I make music under, and then I had like just a kind of a half-joking alias as Ishgallen, which is like some Irish bastardization of Balakwa, because Balakwa is obviously Bella Aqua, beautiful water, and that was just on the Department of Energy compilations. But yeah, Balakwa is my main alias. So yeah, I've had 12 out on Apartment Records, which was really nice, because obviously myself, Kenny works on the festival with me.
Yeah, of course.
And I had an album on Where the Time Goes year before last as well, which was amazing, because that's one of my favorite Irish labels. But yeah, I mean, I'm sitting on like, I think about 170 finished songs that I just haven't had the chance to release. So I had a track on the recently released Fuit Olive compilation, which is an amazing overview of the Irish dance music scene. So that was really nice, and it was Adam's a friend of mine as well, so it was lovely to work with him on that. But yeah, big things coming, as they say. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Do you have any other big plans for after your 10th year or anything? And something you'd like to do? I'm not asking you to commit to it. I'm just asking, is there plan things you'd like to look at, or
yeah? So we have a open air showcase lined up in one of our favorite London venues towards the end of the year. I've been spending a lot of time in Bristol recently. That city has really taken me to its bosom. They're the loveliest people, and it's so creative. We'd love to do something in Bristol. We also have a lot of folks. We had artists from Bristol come last year, and we have like a lot of friends of mine are actually coming to the festival for the first time this year, and like volunteering and getting involved. And then I think as well, our residence space. We've got a friend of ours, Glenn O'Brien, has designed what we hope will become a kind of a modular creative space where people from the island can use it, artists who play at open ear can use it, and the wider maybe Irish music community if you wanted to come and record an album. But that's all still in the planning stages. But sure, exclusive for the podcast, why not get it out there and like force us to start work?
For sure, yeah.
And then I guess as well, one other thing that we've always wanted to do, but it always kind of gets away from us due to time constraints, is we'd love to work with another festival and do an exchange of artists, but that generally happens through like centralized European funding mechanisms. So it can be quite hard to kind of say like, because we're always like, well, we have this amazing group of artists that you can draw from, but then we're like, who are you gonna suggest in turn? Like, because it has to work for us both.
Like a weird house swap, it has to be right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But who knows? Maybe like we're strategizing and planning as to how we can like increase funding and like figure out ways that we can fulfill all the ambitions we have for the festival. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, Dion, thanks so much for
thank you, and thanks for your tireless work promoting Irish music. It's much appreciated. Yeah,
thanks, appreciate that. I forgot to ask, who does the artwork and stuff? Because it's always been very nice.
The artwork is done by so we've actually had many different designers. A really good friend of ours, Austin, kind of did our initial design, which we were blown away by and so delighted with, because he basically he was like, here you go. And we were like, that's amazing. And for the last 2 years, we've worked with Irene Mansaldo, Ren, who is unbelievably talented. They're based in Berlin. And it's a really, really good fit for us, in terms of the collaborative nature of, client and designer or whatever you want to call it. It works so well for us. And it feels like we hope Ren will be our designer for many years forward. Many years going forward, because we absolutely love her work. It's fantastic.
Thanks for listening to the 909 podcast. If you like what we do, why not consider supporting us at patreon.com/909.